Is there a price to prioritizing doing well over being well? Welcome to Business Without Barriers, the show helping you turn barriers into success breakthroughs and thrive in a volatile world, and the success revolution bringing humanity back to business. To get access to provocative interviews with progressive entrepreneurs every week, be sure to subscribe to bwbtv.net. I'm your host, Carmen Wild, and my guest today is Romy Antoine. Romy is a speaker and thought leader on how organizations can inspire well-being and better engage millennials to attract and retain top talent. And he happens to be a millennial engagement expert who's also a millennial. He's the author of The Ultimate Guide to Engaging Millennials, and is also the founder and CEO of One Stop Wellness, a digital workplace wellness company empowering employees to make well-informed health decisions and reduce the risk of chronic illness. Romy was the 2018 recipient of the National Wellness Institute's inaugural Young Wellness Professional Award for his industry contributions. His work has been covered by Men's Health and Thrive Global, and he was named a top 100 modern man influencer by Black Enterprise. Romy is a graduate of the University of Sciences with a BS in biology and holds a number of certifications. He's a fitness trainer and nutritionist who's coached clients all over the world. And Romy lives in San Antonio, Texas. A very, very warm welcome to you, Romy. It's really great to have you on the show.
Hi, Carmen. Thanks for the wonderful introduction. I'm excited to be here, and I'm glad you reached out. I'm really excited to learn more about your business as well as share my story with everyone listening.
Ah, fantastic, fantastic. And I'm excited to share your magic with the world. And there's a lot of magic here. So we're going to go straight into it. And so, Romy, we can't see much of you at the moment, but with your physique, if you rocked up without a shirt, you'd cause quite a sensation. Yet you choose to wear a collar shirt and bow tie at conferences. Tell us about the intention behind that.
Yeah. So the bow tie actually started back when I was in college. I was interning with some orthopedic surgeons back in Philadelphia. And there was one surgeon I really liked. He was really inspiring. He shared a lot of great stories, and he was one person I looked up to that when I did want to be a doctor, I wanted to be just like him.
Mm-hmm.
And he would always come in with a bow tie, and it just always looked different. And I would ask him why he wore a bow tie, and he would always tell me he just wants to look unique. And he told me to get a bow tie. He actually bought me a bow tie later that week, and from then on, I continued to wear bow ties. And when I would be at conferences or any type of event, people would just come up to me just to compliment my tie. So I think doing that was a way to start branding myself, that people would know me as the guy with the bow tie. And I would start going around and introducing myself, and that would always be a topic starter as what then I would go into what the actual conversation would be about. So I think that's really where it all started, and it's just something I continued over the years because I continued to like it. So I probably own about 100 different bow ties now.
That's fantastic, and I love that it's a sort of point of departure, and an icebreaker in a lot of ways. So amazing, amazing. As a child, what would you say was the greatest influencer that contributed to you being who you are today?
I think as a child, it was mainly my parents. They were always encouraging me to be my best, or if I wasn't the best at what I was doing in school or sports, they wanted me just to be one of the best. But they would still encourage me and congratulate me along the way during all of my failures, always support me, whether I wanted to take an extra class or go to sports camp to improve on what I was doing and really fuel my passion for various interests. So that could have been playing the piano, playing basketball, going to different science classes. Just having that uh, growing up really gave me the encouragement and motivation to continue moving forward in a more positive way. And I notice a lot of other people who don't have that same type of influence. They tend to lack more confidence as they get older. So I'm really happy I was able to have that growing up.
What a blessing. Really is amazing to have that kind of foundation, a support base right at the outset that gave you that self-belief. That's a priceless gift they gave you.
Mm-hmm.
And staying with your so let's, your mom, I read that she passed on, and that had an influence on or driving force really behind the space, the wellness space that you're in. Tell us a little bit about how that actually drove you and some of the factors around that.
Yeah, prior to her passing, I was still in Philadelphia working at a research lab. I was actually doing cancer genomics research, which was extremely interesting. And I was there for a few years. And as my mom's condition started to get much worse, I decided to leave that job and move back to New Jersey to try to take care of her. And around that time, I think I was about 6 months in of starting my first company, Ripton Fit, which was an online fitness blog and eventually turned into coaching. So I knew since I quit that job and I had no other income, my business had to be my main source of income. And I really had to do whatever it took to be successful. So I was working night and day while also helping to take care of my mom, and just watching her condition worsen over time, just it saddened me, but it also gave me a lot more encouragement that I can help to influence the well-being of others. And that was also a time that I wasn't really taking care of myself enough because it was just work and focusing on my mom. So remember, my mom would tell me I need to take care of myself, because if I didn't take care of myself, I couldn't help her out. And I remember one day, after probably was 3 or 4 months later, I looked into the mirror and I just couldn't recognize myself because I wasn't eating enough. I wasn't going to the gym. I wasn't doing anything. And it really hurt me to see how my health was starting to deteriorate while I was trying to help her get better. So the next day, I started going back to the gym, started eating healthier, cooking more. And I think doing that also helped me to get more focused on my business, because your well-being also affects your productivity, your mental health. And if you're lacking in one area, it's going to cause you to stagnate in the other area. So momentum creates momentum. And as you start moving positively in the right direction, everything else will start to improve. So I think that really played a role. And my mom always told me to promise to her that no matter what, I would continue to take care of myself and be the best version of myself that I could be.
Another gift that she gave you, which has impacted so much of well, maybe everything that you're doing. As we'll see as we go through the rest of the show today, you've given so much of your best in such a short space of time. And it's really incredible to see how you've accelerated so quickly. So let's go to one of those moments where you were acknowledged, truly acknowledged by Black Enterprise as the top 100 modern man influencer. That's quite an amazing list to end up on. And their tagline is "Modern Man of Distinction." What did you do to stand out in this highly competed space when you were just starting out? So if you go back to when you were starting out in this space, it's a very different scenario to where you are right now. You must have been doing something already then to stand out. Tell us what distinguished you.
Um, so when I first started out, I just noticed the lack of credibility of everything you find online in the fitness industry. There's so much information, but it becomes so overwhelming because no one knows what's the right answer. So I made it my mission in my first company to make sure all the articles, all the information was backed by science and they were all credible. And from there, I continued to increase the content we were producing and making sure it was the most trusted content you can find. Um, Along with that, I started to realize the need for storytelling and creating community. So back when I was still living in New York, I decided to put together these fitness networking parties where I would connect various fitness influencers, brands, local companies to the local fitness enthusiasts so that they could understand or learn about new products, services, meet a workout partner, make new friends. And that was something that didn't even exist in the industry because you see networking events around every other industry, any category or topic. But when it comes towards fitness enthusiasts, you don't see that at all. And I feel that we were the first to actually bring something like that to life, especially in New York City, and get a great turnout. And from there, I started to make other contributions towards the workplace wellness space because I started out doing these networking parties that then turned to us creating corporate wellness health fairs at large corporations and speaking on these different topics, how to get employees healthier and happier at work, different exercises you can do right at your desk to improve your productivity and your mental health. And I was coming in at a time where people didn't really talk too much about it. It was all an idea. It sounded great, but no one actually took action on it. When you looked at the corporate wellness space at the time, it was mostly just doing step competitions and
Hmm.
getting a biometric screening. And I started to blog and talk more about all the other aspects of wellness, how it's multidimensional, and how each aspect of well-being affects the whole person. And then what was great about making that list was for the years prior to me actually getting on that list, I was always reading Black Enterprise magazine. I would see all the men who did make that list, and I was inspired to be on there. And I was nominated. I have no clue who nominated me or how I even got there, but someone was watching my work. And a couple months later, I received an email asking to interview me for it. So I think it's really finding out what's available in your industry, finding your passion and how you can contribute, and doing something completely different that might seem radical at the time, but that will then fuel the innovation.
Ah, wow. So sounds like you brought a millennial touch to the industry at the time, and a special Romy flavor to it. You spiced it up a little bit, and that's exactly what was needed to get some new blood and juice flowing. So compare it, or maybe it's not so different. What do you think now, with more experience and many accolades behind you? What would you say now is your distinguishing factor?
That's a tough question. I think now it's really combining all the experience I've had over the years and making a better judgment and providing more substance and research behind a lot of the things I would say in the past. While I was working with these companies and speaking at all these different conferences, I was still learning myself. So continuing to do that research, meet more experts, speak to some of the leaders in the industry gave me better insight to then improve my business.
Mm. So depth and substance. It sounds
Mhm.
like you really go deep, and that brings so much quality to what you're doing. So a little bit more on this subject. What you've got this incredible way of turning perceived disadvantages into distinctions. You take what someone else would just maybe stop in their tracks and just see that as a disadvantage, and maybe not even try or give up too soon. You turn that around and you make it a distinctive quality of yours. For someone that's maybe in that situation where they're just perceiving the disadvantage at the moment, what advice would you give as a practical thing that they can do to sort of break through that?
Yeah, I think for that, it's really understanding that everyone doesn't know what you know. And even though you feel you might be lacking in a certain area or you might not be fully prepared, you still have some knowledge or insight that you can share with someone else. And you might think that you're not saying things properly or you're messing up, but no one really understands what's in your head. So being able to take that and be creative with it is really going to help anyone break past that barrier. Because I've been in situations where I felt that I wasn't prepared, but I realized I can spin it around and include the audience into a conversation versus me presenting a full prepared speech. And having that engagement with my audience actually helped me to improve the content that I was providing, because now they were part of it and it wasn't just me giving out information. So doing something like that actually made me feel more comfortable that I wasn't as prepared as I could have been, but now I had more support and people to come in and fill in the gaps. So my advice is not to stress over it too much, but really look deep into what you have to offer and what you can provide to make all the difference.
Mm. And then what you say in there, Rome, is really awesome. It's there's always a way around it. So look deeper into it, be creative, spin it. There is always something you do have, find it, and then leverage that, which you've done so amazingly well right from the outset. Tell us.
Thanks.
Sorry.
I was going to say, I think a lot of people tend to freeze up in those situations. And I think that's really one of my superpowers, that I can work under adversity, even if my back is to the wall.
So tell us about that. Well, what do you think helps you do that? Because you must. What goes on in your mind that helps you push through that when your wall's against the back, when your back's against the wall?
I think that just goes back to my childhood and upbringing, just knowing that I just need to be as prepared as I can be. But even if I'm not the best, I can still find a way to be one of the best or be good at what I'm doing. So I just always look at the bigger picture, is what's the worst thing that could happen? And it can be so much worse, but if you focus on what you can do well, I think you'll end up successful.
Fantastic. Tell us about a bold thing that you've done that to move your business forward that paid off. So it was a bold thing, maybe even a little bit risky, but it paid off. Is there anything like that that comes to mind?
So I guess in maybe 2015 or 2016, I remember I was driving in the car and listening to the radio and heard some segment about companies such as Comcast and ABC were paying millennial consultants over $50,000 an hour to help them understand this generation. And I saw that as a great opportunity, even though I wasn't necessarily a millennial consultant. I decided to then go on my LinkedIn and change my entire headline to millennial engagement expert and start sharing articles around millennial topics in the workplace. Um, Within days, I started receiving emails and requests from companies and other organizations looking to book me to speak on this topic and do a prepared speech on something I've never even spoke on. And I accepted it. and knew I had to then deliver. So I did as much research as I could, but I also had my experience growing up as a millennial, working at various places and understanding the dynamics within the workplace. I was then able to go there and present and do a great presentation and be invited to return to future ones. So I think just taking that same creativity and just taking a chance at an opportunity that's available and finding a way to move forward without worrying about where you can fail.
Way to go. You saw a gap, took the gap, and wow, I mean, it's led you to writing the ultimate guide to engaging millennials, and there's just been a absolute flow of opportunities that came from that. Tell us what's important to millennials.
So millennials, it's a wide range of age groups because you currently have anyone in their early 20s all the way to 40 years old now. Um, but when you really look into what drives us, it's really having that collaboration within the workplace, being able to work in teams, get a lot of constant feedback and constructive criticism so we know where we're messing up, where we're doing well, and how we can improve. A lot of people tend to skip out on that feedback portion because they don't think it's necessary. But growing up, we always received feedback, and using that would help us to do better the next time. Thing also with millennials, we just like to get recognition about what we're doing and give recognition to others. So it might just be giving someone a high five for doing a great job, or just congratulating your team during a weekly meeting. I think having that constantly will then motivate us to work harder. And flexibility within the workplace. We see that now due to the pandemic with everyone working virtually. But I remember when I wrote the book, I mentioned that companies need to start looking into a more flexible workplace, allowing employees to work from home as well as work at the office and have that flexibility around their schedule to get their work done. And now that's the normal thing happening. But in my book, I said the companies that didn't do that would fall behind, and the companies that did would then succeed. With millennials, it's really coming down to fostering that creativity as well as just implementing technology within every aspect of our work. You might have heard this yourself. If there's not an app for it, I don't want to use it because it makes it a lot easier to do, makes us more productive and efficient. So I think those are the key drivers in how to manage millennials and keep them happy in the workplace.
Thank you. And what's the best way? You say collaborate, and what's the best way to communicate? So is it, what's is it in a one-to-one? Is it in a Zoom meeting? Is it what's the best way to actually have that um, sort of engagement?
I don't think there's a specific best way because everyone has their own preferences. So I think it's best to communicate and ask them what's their preferred way of communication, because it doesn't have to be one specific format. It can be having the one-to-one meetings, having the Zoom calls, maybe sending an email just to check on them, or even a phone call or a text. So I think combining all of those together really shows the constant feedback, as well as if you notice one channel isn't working as well, maybe you need to stick to the others. But everyone will have a different preference. And I think being flexible in that sense is going to help the most.
Aha. What must I absolutely not do? What's the mistake I must not make if I'm leading a millennial?
Uh, I would say millennials have gotten a lot of stereotypes over the years. And I think the one thing that you should not do is to call millennials lazy or entitled.
Mhm.
That's the biggest stereotype and perception that we have about millennials, but it's not necessarily true. 'Cause I know millennials who are 23, 24 years old, running successful companies, waking up 5 a.m. each day to do everything that needs to be done to get there. I know people who are also uh, taking care of their families while going to work each day and making sure they can do everything needed to provide. So I don't think it's about being lazy and entitled. I think it's understanding how we can communicate with them. So don't just stick to that stereotype.
Lovely advice. Thank you. Let's go to you. You've got this incredible dual role here where you about millennials. You're also very much health focused. So on your website, you say bad health equals bad business. Tell us the bad and the ugly about poor health and how that impacts lives, business, our economy. Give it to us.
Yeah, poor health is never good. Is when you're unhealthy, you're not really focused on your work, you're not focused on anything else but either getting better or just staying in that self-loathing space where you don't think you're good enough. You need to see your doctors and you just don't feel well. So I think that will lead to also having lower productivity at work, sometimes anxiety, depression, and other aspects of that can manifest through poor health. As I mentioned before, when you're stuck in one area, it might affect other areas. So having bad health will then lead to maybe more irritability or worse conversations with your coworkers or your managers. And that might lead to bad business. On the opposite side, if you are a business leader or a manager, you want to keep your employees as healthy as possible because you want them staying there as long as possible. You don't want to then have to hire new employees every couple of months because that costs money. You have to spend time in recruiting, hiring, interviewing. And when you look at the numbers around that, to the cost to replace a millennial or Gen Z employee after you factor in the training and onboarding is almost $60,000. So companies don't want to spend that money, so they should invest in the health of their employees so that they're always running efficiently and their employees are feeling their best every single day and they're motivated to go to work and be their best selves.
Hmm. How prevalent is burnout, severe stress that leads to other issues? How prevalent is it in the workplace?
I think it's one of the leading causes of poor productivity and also then to bad health. We don't often talk about burnout, stress, and anxiety in the workplace, which is, it doesn't make sense to me when you really think about it because we have days, we can take days off to go see the doctor or so a sick day, or you can take a day off for personal time. But I think there should be something more like a mental health day where you need to take a day to then recharge and focus on your mental health and well-being. And I think now over the last maybe 2 or 3 years, that's becoming more of the norm. People are starting to speak out around mental health, and it really is making a difference within the workplace. But you see it every single day, and just because someone comes in with a smile on their face doesn't necessarily mean they're doing okay. They might be the most depressed person there is, but they don't want others to know what they're going through. So managers can then provide resources or even help the employees to understand that they care about their mental health and well-being so that it does not lead to burnout. And outside of the workplace, we see that so much with entrepreneurs because it's like we're going through an emotional roller coaster every single day. So you might have a really great day, then tomorrow might be horrible. Then you close a deal and then they say, we don't want to do the deal anymore. So it can then lead to a lot of depression because you have really high highs and really low lows. So it's really hard to stay stable. I really believe taking time out of your day to focus on your mind, meditate, do something that can relax you so that you are doing your best every single day.
And your company, One Stop Wellness, is bringing a lot of innovative ways to help employees do that. Tell us a little bit about some of the creative things that you're doing to help companies improve employee wellness.
Yeah, when you mentioned the mental health aspect, we actually invented or created a mood tracker because, as I mentioned before, not everyone's going to come in and say they're in a bad mood each day. So we simplified it and actually made it more fun to track your mood and express how you're feeling. So the employees would be able to log into the app and they see a couple of emojis from a frown to a happy face. And they can just go in discreetly and choose how they're feeling that day and might mean leaving extra notes that they can save and look back at their progress. But that's a great indicator because let's say you have an employee coming in and they keep clicking on that sad face every single day. Our algorithm then detects that there might be something wrong and it sends a notification to that employee. We notice the last 5 out of 7 days you come in a bad mood. Here's some resources that can help. Also, did you know your company has an EAP service that can help you with any mental health issues or depression? Because you're not going to have the people that are just raising their hand that they need help, but just giving them that nudge in a discreet manner makes all the difference.
That's and are they using it? So do they need encouragement to use these things, or are you finding that they actually want to use this and get the help?
I think there's two aspects to it. They're using it because they want the help and they just want to track what they're doing and how they're feeling each day. But we also tie rewards and incentives to it. So every action that they do on the app, whether it's tracking their mood, tracking their exercise or their sleep, or doing various assessments, they're earning points, which companies can then incentivize to gift cards or paid time off or various rewards for that employee. So the more they interact with the app, the more they get rewarded. So it becomes a feedback loop where employees are doing it to improve themselves, but they're also getting that reward at the end of the day. And I think having that is a big motivator to get employees to use it more.
And are you seeing, so tell us some of the changes that you're seeing with companies that are using these apps?
One of our clients came to us because they were working with another vendor that they offered something similar, but it wasn't as robust and had much less on the functionality side. So they started working with us and they liked the usability and the look and feel of it and how easy it was to get the employees started and keeping them engaged. And we noticed that the company told us due to our process, an employee actually was able to then detect that they had an AFib problem early on versus not going to the doctor, not doing all of their assessments, and that could have led to a stroke. So having these tools to track their health, upload their blood biometric reports and seeing what their chronic health risks are or what may be affecting different areas of their health makes all the difference. So I think just making that case that we can help someone who wouldn't necessarily go to the doctor discover that they have a horrible condition that can essentially become fatal makes the use case of our app much more much more amazing for an employer. So I think that's one of the biggest stories that we can share. And going forward, that use case, there's so many other aspects, even around the mental health side. Like I mentioned, we can send them to the right resources or connect them to a therapist through telehealth. And I think giving employees what they need and that access to it in real time is really what sets us apart.
And I have no doubt in the last few months, this has been a priceless tool for employers to be able to have right at their fingertips.
Correct. Yeah, especially since there's less access to the doctors, being able to keep track of everything on their own. And if they do notice a potential risk, they then can connect with that doctor. Makes all the difference because they're not necessarily going to know what's happening in their body without that. And
Sure.
giving them that extra confidence that maybe they are doing well, that they're going to continue on that path versus not knowing at all.
Yeah, it's ingraining those the good habits that are there and highlighting what's not good early enough. So it's a fantastic tool. So tell us what would you say is some of the most overlooked factors when it comes to well-being that so they're overlooked but they would make the biggest difference. What are some of those key things that we must keep in mind?
I think some of the factors towards well-being would be sleep. We tend to work all the time and we live in this fast-paced life that we don't prioritize sleep as much as we should. I myself do that all the time. I say I need to get as much work done as possible, and sometimes I get maybe 3 or 4 hours of sleep, and I know that's not the greatest thing to do, but I think sleep is the number one factor in our total well-being that we need to pay attention to and focus on a lot more, because when you are sleeping and fully recharged, you can operate at your best. I think that would be the first one. I think also just nutrition, what you're putting into your body. There's so much processed food out there, so many chemicals that we tend to put in our bodies, and it's not really helping us in the long run. So it might give us that quick fix, but it's not going to allow us to do this consistently over time. And when I look at other people who may drink 5 to 6 cups of coffee a day, and they ask me, don't I do the same? And I tell them I don't really take any caffeine at all. I just stick to a healthy diet and make sure I stay hydrated, and I feel perfectly fine. I'm not saying caffeine is bad, but when you start to optimize what you're putting in your body and understanding your various triggers on how foods make you feel, eating more mindfully, and understanding how that might result in your work as well as your lifestyle, I think that's when you can really make that shift and work at your best.
And
Also,
yeah,
go ahead.
no, you go on.
I was going to say also exercise. I don't think it's necessarily having to go to a gym for 2 hours a day. It might just be going for a 15-minute walk or just adding some more movement into your day. Not saying sedentary all day long and then sitting on the couch watching TV and repeating that the next day. So I think those three factors, your sleep, your nutrition, as well as your exercise, really people aren't focusing on as much because there's so much more going on in their lives, so much to think about. But when you do focus on those three, you can then, it will result in optimal well-being.
Mm. And what are you doing? What have you found to work for you to stay energized?
Stay energized. I think just sticking to a sleep schedule, making sure for the most part I'm going to bed at the same time every single day, waking up at the same time, just having that same routine. Exercising, as I mentioned before, some days I get less exercise than I would like, but making sure I'm just doing the smaller things. It might be getting up every half hour from my desk and stretching and moving around. As long as I'm doing something and moving, it's allowing my brain to continue flowing and getting creative and having lots of ideas, as well as just taking time to focus on my mental well-being. So sometimes I'll meditate or practice mindfulness. And I think many people don't do this because they feel that meditation might be boring or it takes too long. But when you really think about it, anything you do can become a form of meditation. Anytime where you can feel that you're fully present in that moment, that you're doing something and solely thinking on that is meditation. It might be washing the dishes, might be swimming or playing basketball. You don't have to be sitting in a chair on a mat completely still, but just finding that moment for yourself, whether it's 2 minutes a day or 10 minutes a day, is going to help you to achieve the productivity as well as the well-being you're looking for.
That's really nice that you've put it out in that way, because I think so many people do hesitate or don't look into meditation because it feels like, oh, you have to sit and, sit in, and how can I quiet my brain for so long? Yet, like you've put it, there's different ways to find the calm, find the peace, and just sort of center yourself. And different things work for different people. So it's finding what works for you. How has your personal integrity served you? Staying true to who you are, how has that served you?
I think as an entrepreneur and trying to build successful businesses, you want to find the right customers, and you end up meeting so many different people who want different aspects of your services or your products and what you're offering. And I think in the beginning, that's fine because you don't really know what you are or what you'd like to become. But when you really think about it, you need to know that you can't cater to everyone. And I learned this a long time ago while working with a business coach, that when you try to cater to everyone, you cater to no one. So really taking time to dig deep into what your offering is and understanding your product and knowing that you have an overall strategy or vision. And it doesn't matter what your product is at the time or how it may change or evolve, as long as you're sticking to that same vision and strategy of the end goal, it doesn't really matter. So you don't need to be married to your product as long as you're sticking to what you'd like to achieve in that overall strategy.
You've got, I'd read somewhere, can't remember where, that a meaningful quote for you is, it doesn't matter if the glass is half empty or half full. All that matters is that you are the one pouring the water. I love it. I love that quote. How have you ensured that you are pouring the water?
Yeah, I think it's really understanding that you're fully in control of your success or your failures. Obviously, there's some things that may be out of your control, but knowing that how you react to a situation makes the biggest difference in how it ends up. and making sure you're in control. So you're the one pouring that water. So it might be you're pouring all of it at once, or you might be pouring it slowly, but making sure you're moving in the right path. You're taking the right steps to get to where you want to be and not focusing on the situation. So, as we mentioned earlier, being in a situation when you might not feel fully prepared, you need to know that you're the one in control. So, you're going to control that meeting, you're going to control that presentation, and making sure that it goes your way, not allowing other people to take over. And I think having that mindset is really what helped me to achieve what I've had so far. So just understanding what I can do for myself as well as how I want it to come, and not being overly making sure that I'm patient while it's happening, because you don't want to rush every single moment, and making sure you're basking in and savoring the success that you're achieving.
It's such a lovely mantra to go by, as to also know that you can pour the water. So many people may hold back because they don't realize how much control they actually have, and then hesitate to pour that water. So thank you for that. I really loved. I love that quote. It's very meaningful.
Yeah, you did your research.
Yeah, I that one was, like I said, I don't remember where it was, but it sort of jumped out because it's very meaningful. What excites you about the future?
I think what I'm really excited is how everything is starting to evolve and move towards direction of more technology. I love technology. I love anything that could make life more efficient and more easier overall. So I'm truly excited on how that will manifest, whether it's the way our computers will start to evolve, or our phones, or even the cars we have. And I think while everyone talks about how the internet and social media is really keeping people more distant and reducing communication, I think the complete opposite. I think now just having Facebook, LinkedIn, or other social media networks allows us to still communicate with people who we may not see in a year, or someone we may not interact with each day. So I think in the future, using technology will help us to increase that communication and become more united with our family and friends, as well as find people that you would normally not ever come across. So, because without social media, I would have never met you and been on this interview today. So I'm really excited about that and how things will turn out over the next couple of years.
I'm with you on that one. So this show is not only about turning barriers into success breakthroughs, but bringing humanity back to business. And it's something that's close to your heart as well, where you believe that we need to bring the human back into humanity. Tell us how you would see the world be in a different place if we started to do that much more.
Yeah, I think there's so much chaos going on, especially right now, that we tend to overlook how we can just be better humans and how we can interact with each other. So I really would like to see more compassion, um, not necessarily just compassion towards your friends and family, but even towards complete strangers. Just giving someone a simple smile each day, because you never know what they might be going through, and that might be something that changes the trajectory of their entire day or their entire life. So things like that, also just random acts of kindness, whether it's buying someone behind you in the drive-through their coffee that morning if you can't afford to do so. Something that you can do for someone without expecting something in return really would lead to more happiness in the world. And I think that's where we're really failing as people because we're honestly just thinking about ourselves and our families, but not how we can reciprocate and bring back goodness to everyone else.
So on that note, Romy, if you had the opportunity to put out a message to every single person on this planet, what message would you want to share?
I would tell people to be more grateful and be kind to each other, and not in the sense of just telling people I think you're great, but also just appreciating the small things that we do for one another, and also how we can help people who can never repay the work that we do for them.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Anything else along the topics of wellness or well-being or millennial engagement you want to share as a final note?
Yeah, I think as a final note, I would tell everyone to really focus on your identity and who you'd like to become. You can think of this when you're talking fitness wise or mental health, but as you start to create that routine and lifestyle that fits for you, you need to make sure that you stick to it, because it's almost like a thermostat. If you set the temperature to 70 degrees and you're sticking to that routine, you'll continue on that right path. But if one day the temperature changes, it's going to throw everything out of whack. So knowing where your identity is, and when things change, you know how to get back to that homeostasis and continue moving forward.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Romy, and thank you for being on the show and bringing us these truths we need to hear. You know, these deep insights and reminders. Really, it's good reminders that we are only human. We need to take care of ourselves, not only each other, but ourselves as well. To bring, if we're going to bring the human into humanity, that means self does need to be in there, to be compassionate with self as well, to be kind to self as well. We're often not kind to ourselves in terms of what we put into our bodies, and being reckless in terms of sleep and not doing our exercise or not giving us those moments. So thank you for taking the time to be with us today, to remind us to be kind to others and compassionate, but to be kind to ourselves too. And it's been awesome to hear how in a very, very short space of time, because of the depth that you've attributed to your work, and how you've chosen to move from disadvantages to finding those distinctive ways you can be different, you've really been able to do remarkable, radically different and amazing things in a very short space of time. So well done.
Thanks.
It's an absolute pleasure, and we wish you well. You've got an important job to continue to do, as we don't know where this COVID situation is going. So thank you for bringing your digital presence to us as well through your work. And thank you to all of those of you watching, listening. Absolutely, this whole program is about turning your barriers into breakthroughs, and so often we don't realize that the barrier is ourselves, and that we're holding back from being well and fit and nourished. And when we bring that back into the fore, we need to be pouring the water. We need to be sure that we're pouring that water in the right place. So grateful to all of you, and take care of yourselves, be kind to yourselves, be compassionate, and then do that to others as well. And if we do, we absolutely will be creating a new story and creating an enriching future for us all. Thank you. Till next time.